Stephanie chose the section that we will be reading from today, which is in English, The Headless Girl. And we'll be reading back and forth across the beautiful short paragraphs that make up this section. And I think I'll say no more about it. I'd love for us to be able to start. Stephanie will read the French. I'll read the English, as I say, back and forth so that it's not too long in either language. And yeah, anything I'm leaving out needs to be added. Okay. À vous. Oui.
La fille sans tête.
Peut-être un plus loud. Merci bien. I can't remember the word for loud.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. La fille sans tête. Is that right?
I think so. It could be louder, but I can hear you.
Ok. Il y a l'espace, la maison, la terre, sur le sol les arbres avec leurs feuilles, la voiture, la porte. Il y a le bruit des voix, des tracteurs, des vaches, le vent qui traverse l'espace, et les sons, et les choses. Il y a le temps qui passe avec l'entrée, le plat, le dessert, le village avec l'église et les maisons, les gens dans les maisons, les routes, les chemins qui traversent l'espace, et toujours le temps qui passe, l'entrée, le plat, le dessert, le temps qui passe, et ne s'arrête pas.
There is the space, the house, the earth, on the ground, trees with their leaves, the car, the door. There's the noise of voices, tractors, cows, the wind which crosses space, and sounds and things. There is the time that passes with the appetizer, the main course, the dessert, the village which with its church and houses, the people in the houses, the roads, the tracks crossing space, and always the time that passes, appetizer, main course, dessert, time that passes, and never stops.
Il y a elle, une fille sans tête, une fille qui pousse sans sa tête, comme une herbe qu'on ne peut pas tuer. Une fille qui ne le sait pas mais qui résiste, c'est cela qu'elle fait. Elle résiste. Ne pas disparaître, ne pas tomber, garder sa tête, la rassembler, lui donner un visage, autre chose que la voix sans mots, autre chose que sa mort, sa capacité de mort.
That's her, a headless girl, a girl who grows without her head, like a weed you can't kill, a girl who doesn't know but resists. That's what she does, she resists. Not to disappear, not to fall, keeps her head, pulls herself together, gives herself a face, something other than the voice without words, something other than her death, her capacity for death.
Une fille comme ça ne plaît pas aux garçons. Elle ne leur plaît pas, non, elle les mord. Elle les mord pour toutes les filles comme elle, toutes celles et ceux qui comme elle n'ont pas de tête. Une fille comme ça n'est pas une fille, pour personne. C'est autre chose qui se passe, une autre histoire. Pas une histoire de fille, garçon, enfant. Non, une autre histoire.
A girl like this isn't what the boys want. She doesn't please them, no, she bites them. She bites them for all the girls like her, all of them and all of those who, like her, have no head. A girl like that is not a girl for anyone. It's something else that happens. Another story. Not a story of girls, boys, children. No. Another story.
Sur un tas de terre, avec la langue, un garçon embrasse une fille. La fille grandit, sa bouche reçoit d'autres langues, mais jamais elle ne comprend pourquoi dans sa bouche des langues de garçons se promènent.
On a pile of dirt, with his tongue, a boy kisses a girl. The girl grows up, her mouth receives other tongues, but she doesn't ever understand. She doesn't ever understand why the tongues of boys wander in her mouth.
Parmi les gens qui n'ont pas de tête, il y a cette fille, celle qui se fait fouiller la bouche par une langue de garçon. Ça lui laisse un souvenir sur un tas de terre. C'est l'été, le temps des colonies de vacances. Un temps que les filles pensent béni. Elles croient ça, les filles, que leurs bouches sont vides quand elles ne sont pas remplies par des langues de garçons.
Among the people who are headless, there's this girl. She who gets her mouth searched by a boy's tongue. That leaves her with a memory on a pile of earth. It's summer, the time of vacation camps, a time the girls think blessed. They believe, the girls, that their mouths are empty when they are not filled by the tongues of boys.
Dans la tête de cette fille sans tête reposent accrochées à un fil et pendantes avec nonchalance des langues roses parsemées de points blancs. Elles ne font rien. Elles attendent. Accrochées une à une par une épingle à linge, elles pendent mollement, ne servent à rien.
In the head of this headless girl, pink tongues rest swinging, nonchalant, suspended from a wire and sprinkled with white dots. They don't do anything. They wait. Hung one by a pin from a wire, they hang limply, useless.
Elles auraient ça, les filles, une parole qui aurait poussé en elles, comme un désir, une envie, une promesse d'elles à elles pour le futur, pour leur corps dans le futur, ce qu'elles vont faire, ce qu'elles vont devenir. Une parole qui ne serait pas de la mère ou du père, non, pas une parole apprise, autre chose. Une parole qui serait née d'un endroit inconnu, sans géniteur. Une parole qui aurait poussé dans leur corps quand elles dormaient petites, quand elles jouaient dans le noir, leurs doigts mêlés aux cheveux blonds des poupées synthétiques. Elles auraient ça qui aurait poussé en elles, et qu'elles ne pourraient plus arracher, parce que ce serait collé partout, à leurs yeux, à leurs mains, à l'intérieur même de leur bouche. Ce serait collé, inscrit, tapissé partout, comme une peau, un onguent qui serait devenu une peau. Alors plus rien ni personne ne pourrait y changer quoi que ce soit. Plus rien ni personne ne pourrait défaire ce qui, à l'intérieur des filles, aurait poussé et serait devenu elles, totalement elles. Dans leur corps, quelque chose aurait poussé qu'elles ne pourraient plus enlever.
They would have this, the girls, a word which would have grown in them like a desire, a wish, a promise from themselves to themselves for the future, for their body in the future, what they were going to do, what they were going to become. A word that would not be from mother or father, no, not a learned word, something else. A word that would be born from an unknown place, without a progenitor. A word that would have grown in their bodies when they were little, asleep, when they played in the dark, their fingers tangled in the synthetic hair of blonde dolls. They would have had that which would have grown in them, and which they could no longer rip out, because it would have stuck everywhere, to their eyes, to their hands, to the interior even of their mouth. It would be stuck fast, inscribed, papered everywhere like a skin, a salve which would become a skin. Then nothing, no one could change what would be. Nothing, no one could undo that which inside the girls' bodies would have grown and become them, totally them. In their bodies, something would have grown that they could no longer remove. Oh, that was so fun.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you so much.
C'était super de vous entendre.
Thank you for writing this amazing book. And for being patient with me, since I'm such a slow translator. Should we transfer over to the next book and then we can come back and do some things? But I know Stephanie won't be here with us for the whole reading because she's with her father this evening. So any questions first?
Why don't you tell us then how you want to do it? I mean, do you want to wait another 15 or 20 minutes before we have questions, or do we have that much time?
Stephanie, you tell us. Le temps pour vous?
Maybe, j'ai encore un quart d'heure, 20 minutes.
Okay.
I still have 15 minutes, yes.
Yeah, good. Okay. Great. 15 minutes more with Stephanie. Do you want to squeeze in a couple of questions for her before in case she needs to go? Anyone?
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I guess one of the questions I wanted to ask like everybody is, was this translation project. I know you said you picked the book up at a stand and started reading it and loved it. And then I assume you met Stephanie. So what I'm wondering is just how collaborative it was. I mean, is this something you sat in your garret and did, or did it go back and forth between you, or just how did it work?
Un peu de arrière, avant derrière, oui. My French, I'll just say, in case anyone didn't pick up on this, my spoken French is trash, just awful. I mean, really, I bow down to Stephanie, who agreed to let somebody come and work on a translation of her book when that person basically said, I think I've got this right, because I got the verbs confused. I was like, I me you betray your poetry? And Stephanie was like, okay. And then we did a little sitting down. I'm not in Paris often enough. We did a little sitting down together, but I did a lot alone. And as I mentioned in the translator's introduction, I was lucky enough to be able to call on the deep translation skills of my friend Elena Rivera, who's with us today. So I worked on it in my many different...
Hello, Elena.
Yeah, and we worked in the many different garrets, and occasionally did some collaboration, but mostly it was me realizing how much I had to learn. Stéphanie, for you, you want to parler sur le process de traduction?
Mais Laura quand elle m'a demandé, j'ai dit oui, très vite, mais c'était il y a longtemps, j'arrive pas à me souvenir quand c'était. I don't remember when was our first connection. Do you remember?
Oh, goodness. So I found the book in 2010. I might have contacted you even that quickly. I was so excited about the book. So we might have met at least in 2010 or 2011 or somewhere in, I can't remember, but we definitely did a sit down once because I was so thrown by the gold ring and the Mickey Mouse, the carousel sequence. So I remember that. Yeah. Your guess is as good as mine for the year, since I'm so slow.
Et non, mais Laura, tu peux traduire Laura pour moi? Laura avait vraiment toute la liberté. J'ai laissé, enfin c'est normal, je maîtrise pas bien l'anglais et puis je lui ai fait confiance. C'était comme ça.
I'm glad you had confidence in someone who can't translate what you just said perfectly, because I have to see it written and sit there and fudge. But I am honored by that confidence and buoyed by it, and yeah, merci beaucoup.
All right, cool. Anybody else have any questions for Laura and or Stephanie? Just unmute yourself and ask away.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to do it. And if not, we'll mosey on, and then we can also catch up a little.
Okay, Kristen.
But this is more for the marketing of the book. Are there any, Laura, when are you coming to Paris and giving a reading in person with Stephanie?
What a great question. Peut-être October. Jennifer Dick has been kind enough to say perhaps a reading at the Ivy series, the bilingual series that she hosts. Perhaps if Stephanie, si vous êtes là dans octobre, peut-être.
Oui, ça va dépendre des dates parce que je vais avoir des tournées avec mon livre, mais je serai pas tout le temps partie. Oui.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Kristen. Yeah, any excuse. Yeah, good.
All right,
All right.
anybody else? All right. We'll move along then to the second book, which is Cassandra at Point Blank Range by Sandra Moussempès, and translated by Carrie Chappell and Amanda Murphy. There they are, they're holding it up. And I'm just gonna introduce them very quickly. Let's start with Amanda. Amanda Murphy, Associate Professor of English and Translation Studies at the Sorbonne Nouvelle University in Paris. She has a PhD in Comp Lit from the same university, specializes in experimental literature and its translation. She's published numerous articles on authors and translation and reading, writing, translating challenges and practices of multilingual writing. And Carrie Chappell is my old GA from University of New Orleans, where she got her MFA a few years ago, and then packed up and moved to Paris, where she soon published Loving Tallulah Bankhead, a Paris Heretics book in 2022, and Quarantine Daybook, a Bottle Cap Press book, 2021, Recent Poems in Birdcoat Quarterly, Iron Horse, Nashville Review, Redivider, and Swim, and essays all over the place also. She currently teaches English as a foreign language at the Conservatoire National des Arts at, I can't read it, okay. And lives in Paris now full-time. And so I'm going to turn it over to Carrie and Amanda, and we haven't really talked about how we're going to do this, but you guys tell us. Amanda, you need to, there you go.
Yep. Thank you, Bill. Yes, this may be a bit tricky as there are two of us, as in addition to Sandra, who, I don't know, is it working, Sandra? Can you hear us? Tu nous entends?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm
Wonderful.
like a ghost, so it's
Yeah.
good.
That's
I'm a
fit-
ghost of my own poems.
it's fitting for the book.
That's maybe a sign. Well, actually, it's strange because my camera is meant to work because there is a light and everything is meant to work. So let's take.
I like Everything is Meant to Work as a book title.
So, yes, this is a co-translation. So that's a particularity of this project. Carrie and I have been friends for a few years, and as both kind of literary language people, we both took an interest in this book and decided to co-translate it. So we started the project back in 2021, and we're thrilled to be able to publish it this spring. And yeah, the co-translation definitely made, I would say, the process quite like I said, particular but rich, in the sense that Sandra's poetry for me is quite how to say, like, our readings of it are multiple in a sense, and so I think the fact that both of us had our own readings and came together to find a translation really was definitely a plus for this type of poetry that can be quite the foreignness even within the French already is, the uniqueness of Sandra's expression made it really positive aspect to have two of us together with it. I don't know what you think, Carrie, briefly maybe, but Yes, so I've just spoken a little bit to her work. Perhaps, I don't know if Carrie, you want to introduce her more?
Well, sure. Yes, I mean, in in good co-translation practice, I really echo everything that Amanda said. And I think the multivocal register range, I think what just to add before we introduce Sandra more, this particular book, Cassandra at Point Blank Range, has just a huge collection of women voices from Anglophone literary community, and going back to like Mary Shelley and Elizabeth Barrett Browning, all the way up to Cindy Sherman. So there was just a lot of kind of references to a culture that Amanda and I had left, and it felt so interesting to be able to travel back to our Englishes with the French regard of Sandra on these communities, and on the sort of like lost sisters of art. And Sandra's been doing that for a while. Cassandra is like her 11th or 12th book. I think there are 13 now out there. Her most recent releases are Fréquence Mulholland, where she actually is in conversation with Mulholland Drive, David Lynch's sort of one of his masterpieces. And then also Sauvons l'ennemi, which really recently released earlier this year, I think in March. And then she had her co-translation come out in April. So it's been kind of a big couple of years for Sandra. But she also is one of the most dedicated poets, I feel like, in France, really, like her entire time and her entire life have not interrupted. Nothing has come into the middle of her relationship with her writing and her sort of calling to the realms. I think of it as realms, especially with Sandra's work. I think we're actually going to do something a little bit in the opposite order of what Laura and Stéphanie just did, where Amanda will read and then Sandra will read after her, and we're going to kind of alternate, and then I'll come on and then Sandra will read. And then I guess we could either talk more about the process or wait to see if there are any questions.
Yeah.
Does that sound good, Amanda? Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think it's we've chosen 3 poems each. So 3 of us and 3 poems, with Sandra we'll echo off of each other, I guess. So I'll read one, then Sandra will read the translation, then Carrie will read one, then the original, then Sandra will read the original, and we'll go back and forth like that. Okay? So this is quite a large collection as well. So it was a bit difficult, as always, when we're reading from this book, to make a choice, because the book is the original is 185 pages, and the translation, because it's a bilingual edition, is 299. So there are a lot of poems to choose from, and we've just kind of chosen some that we like and that are representative of Sandra's poetics. A lot of them are untitled, so this first one is untitled. Right. I freeze your words on a cement wall. When you come back to get them, you will have forgotten this laudatory sonnet on the backside of your existence. I will submit you to an appraisal in a small room, still full of chain links. Sexual organs or words floating on the water of a lake. I call out for help with a feeling of drowning that is not justified. I like the depths, and I can swim well any day. Cyclical poetry assassinates the past away. Go fuck yourself, but don't worry too much. It's just the decor of a personal story, with women, animals, houses, a valley, the expression of things, or the appearance of a cloud, are isolated acts with no mutual understanding. This sonnet is getting off topic. It's time for it to explode. By breathing out through my mouth all kinds of mumbled trauma. I expulse and re-inject them. Years come out with birds of prey. I am sitting, but not under control. I have a rocket shooting gun. Go put my reality in a booby-trapped box. You will see I will come out intact, with city noises as a sonorous backdrop. The first shot will be the best, as a silent sentence connected to the reunion.
Vous m'entendez assez fort ou pas?
Oui.
Je congèle tes paroles sur un mur de ciment. Quand tu reviendras les chercher, tu auras oublié ce sonnet dithyrambique. Sur la face cachée de ton existence, je te soumettrai à une expertise dans une petite pièce encore remplie de chaînons. Sexe ou paroles flottantes sur l'eau d'un lac, j'appelle au secours avec un sentiment de noyade qui n'est pas justifié. J'aime les profondeurs et je sais parfaitement nager. Poésie cyclique vaut pour assassinat du passé. Va te faire foutre, mais n'en fais pas trop. C'est juste le décor d'une histoire personnelle, avec des femmes, des animaux, des maisons, une vallée. La tournure des choses ou l'apparence d'un nuage sont des actes isolés, sans compréhension mutuelle. Ce sonnet part dans tous les sens. C'est le moment de le faire exploser. En expirant par ma bouche toutes sortes de traumas murmurés, je les expulse, je les réinjecte. Des années sortent avec des rapaces. Je suis assise mais pas maîtrisée. J'ai un pistolet, lance-roquette. Va placer ma réalité dans une boîte piégée. Tu verras, j'en sortirai intacte, avec des bruits urbains pour fond sonore. La première prise sera la bonne, en tant que phrase silencieuse liée aux retrouvailles.
Okay. And I'm also reading as a first poem, an untitled one. It's from, I think, the second section of the book. In working to trust my mind, I wondered if I wasn't going to lose it. I am speaking of this little mechanism that replies to my expectations, this breath that I hear behind me sometimes when I am going too far or not far enough, towards a house with no frills. Yes, I received. The secret allowed me to come and go fearlessly. But there, in analyzing the border, the conduits, the duration, the signs, I no longer knew which hallway to take in a mauve tunic sewn with black pearls. I would call it living. I needed that tunic.
À force de mettre en lumière ma conscience, je me demandais si je n'allais pas la perdre. Je parle de ce petit mécanisme qui répond à mes attentes, ce souffle que j'entends derrière moi, parfois, quand je vais trop loin ou pas assez, vers une maison sans fioriture. Je recevais, certes, le secret me permettait d'aller et venir sans crainte. Mais là, en analysant la frontière, la canalisation, la durée, la signalisation, je ne savais plus quel corridor emprunter dans une tunique mauve, cousue de perles noires. J'appellerais ça vivre. Il me fallait cette tunique.
Okay. This is Contents of a Knife. Under your tongue are miniature strawberries, as purple as blueberries. Your tongue is lacerated in the direction of consciousness. I only see the ramifications. The following content wedged itself into a substance full of unsaids. While drinking holy water from the small bottle shaped like the Virgin Mary. I see legs and patent leather shoes latching onto our tongues. Our love floats in the sky like an extraterrestrial condiment.
Contenu d'un couteau. Sous ta langue se trouvent des fraises miniatures, aussi violettes que des myrtilles. Ta langue est lacérée dans le sens de la conscience. Je n'en vois que les ramifications. Le contenu suivant s'est planté dans une matière pleine de non-dits. En buvant l'eau bénite de la petite bouteille en forme de Vierge Marie. Je vois des jambes et des souliers vernis s'accrocher à nos langues. Notre amour flotte dans le ciel, tel un condiment extraterrestre.
Following extraterrestrial condiments is the poem Decorum. This work in progress, necessitating a portion screen printed around the edges of the unsaids. You had offered it to imagination without suspecting the consequences. The happy medium becoming something dark and silky, impossible to reupholster in memory. An orgy of old wallpaper, of which certain families liked to choose the more or less absurd patterns for their shape, color, repetition. At our place, everything was painted over in white, or if not, we left the stone exposed. We just needed to adapt to the total lack of absence of taste. Thus resided the experience of betrayal, but without the lemony scent of moldy glue.
Décorum. Ce travail en cours, nécessitant une partie sérigraphiée autour des non-dits, tu l'avais proposé à l'imagination sans te douter des conséquences. Le juste milieu devenait quelque chose de sombre et soyeux à la fois. Impossible d'en retapisser la mémoire. Cette orgie de vieux papier peint, dont certaines familles aimaient à choisir les motifs plus ou moins absurdes, par la forme, la couleur, les répétitions. Chez nous, tout était repeint en blanc, ou alors on laissait les pierres apparentes. Il suffisait de s'adapter à la totale absence de faute de bon goût. Ainsi subsistait l'expérience de la trahison, mais sans l'odeur citronnée de la colle moisie.
Okay, another untitled poem. From two extremities, one. What the verb pains to say, the mind whispers, only half saying. Protect yourself or come closer to a sleeping lamp, but do not lose your black notebook. This performative task that could solve the enigma in the coming days.
Excuse-moi, Amanda, peux-tu me redire la page, s'il te plaît?
C'est 142 de la traduction. De la... oui.
Très bien. De deux extrémités l'une, ce que le verbe peine à dire, la conscience lui souffle à demi-mot. Protège-toi ou approche-toi d'une lampe qui dort, mais ne perds pas ton cahier noir. Ce travail performatif, pouvant élucider l'énigme des jours suivants.
Okay, and the last one that I'll read is called Self-Hermitage. I had confined myself to the Vox Museum, unpredictable waiting room. It was not a matter of starting a sentence while driving a flying scooter, because you could run over another sentence from outside the paragraph. An abstract obstruction is better, a simpler ode to determine. As here or there nothing is here, she says.
Seul ermitage. Je m'étais confiée au Vox Museum, salle d'attente imprévisible. Il ne s'agit pas de commencer une phrase en conduisant une trottinette volante, parce que tu pourrais renverser une autre phrase hors du paragraphe. Mieux vaut une obstruction abstraite, une ode plus simple à déterminer, comme ici ou là. Rien n'est là, dit-elle.
That was fantastic, y'all. I wonder if maybe I could ask the three of you basically the same question I asked Laura and Stephanie, which is just maybe, I mean, you've already talked about it some, but maybe how this three-way collaboration might have worked, and just maybe talk about the process a little bit, because it's fascinating to me to think of two poet/translators working on the same text, and seems to me it would take a bit of cooperation, and did you ever encounter a situation where you had to kind of reverse course and I don't know, to get everyone in accord?
I'm not sure, Carrie, if you remember a clear example of that. I know on some occasions, I really believe that reading is so indeterminate in the sense that, and particularly poems like this that have such kind of enigmas in them. They talk about enigmas and mystery and spiritual things as well, but they are themselves in somewhat kind of enigmas. So we didn't want to fully resolve those enigmas. I think we were often tempted to try to explain what was happening, and so we had a bit of tension sometimes there of to what how much do we elucidate through translation, and sometimes we didn't always agree on that. But I don't remember being in we were never in major conflict or total things. Maybe word choice or forms of the present where I would want a present continuous and Carrie would want a present simple or something like that. But do you remember, Carrie, any kind of that?
I don't remember anything being unpleasant about the whole thing, but I do think we had, I have in my memory fixed, there might have been more, but there were two big like sit down days. One I think was at my place, and one was at Amanda's university, and specifically the one at Amanda's, we might have had a few over here, but the one at Amanda's university was a big like go through the whole manuscript kind of reading, but that was even before the readings that we did before we sent to Bill, and even after we sent to Bill, which was an intensive process too. But I think you're right. There were some maybe verb tenses, maybe like images were different for each of us, and we actually, more than we wanted to elucidate them on the page, we kind of just had to like diagram them for ourselves. Like, what do you see, or what does this make you think of? Because of the surreal, I mean, what Amanda and I identified as a kind of clinical surreal in Sandra's poetics, and I mean, the more I read it, the more I feel like I've had to do some backtracking and learn more about surrealism in a way that I feel like my American education just really never opened me to, and now I don't know if Sandra likes this, but I feel it's so surreal as in poetry, because of and some of that with the violence. Like I feel like in the poems Amanda read, you can feel some of like the contents of a knife. There's some instruments and sort of like weaponry, but slight and of like the unassuming tools that a woman would have just in her makeup bag. except for the scalpel, perhaps.
Surgeon, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and in terms of our process, more kind of in terms of pragmatically speaking, we started off by dividing the book and working on it separately, and then and sharing what we'd done so far to kind of see if we were on the same page, and then having days where we would edit each other's, so make comments and discuss the ambiguities, and leaving in all of our hesitations like while we were translating, and leaving kind of those choices sometimes to the other person. I can't decide between this and this, what do you think? And so it really was, the whole thing was collaborative. I can't remember really which ones I did first and which ones Carrie did first, so yeah. And we had a bit of input from Sandra as well at the start, for some expressions and things that we were unsure of. But it was true that it was complicated to work on it with the three of us. So we kind of, we started off working in a Google Doc, and then that was a bit too much. So we kind of just ended up working more independently, and then crossing our writing and editing process. I don't know, Sandra. Does Sandra,
maybe Sandra.
Sandra want to say? Oh, sorry, maybe, yeah, Sandra, did you want to respond to what Carrie said about it being surrealist?
Yes, I would say there is sort of a recreation anyway. That's totally logical, and I really loved that suddenly this text was somebody else's text, and also it's very exciting because also you have some French expressions that you can't translate. I would say like properly in America, it's impossible. And then you found some expressions which were really, really interesting for me, because they would really recreate the poetry by the sound. Also, the sound is extremely important, the rhythm of the phrase. It's what it is. Yes, translation about is the music also of the text, and that's part of the work, I suppose. I think so. And it's something I really see even now that I read. I'm reading. We did a reading at Double Change last time, and now this reading. So it's really interesting for me to listen to Amanda and Carrie reading the text. It's quite emotional as well. So there is an enigma, something linked from America, and my this word that I created with this atmosphere of Californian girls and gusty atmosphere, and it's something that I can have with Amanda and Carrie.
From Alabama and Ohio.
Out of
California women.
Yes,
like
and from this film, virgin suicides, or all this atmosphere, and that's something which is even yes, mysterious, and voilà, un petit peu en lévitation. Je sais pas comment on dit lévitation.
In levitation.
Yes. Invitation, yes. California girls. Exactly.
But I think that's interesting for Amanda and myself, because I feel like the California that we received as children was also this kind of ghostly, inaccessible. We didn't live there. Or at least that's how I felt of it as a child. It was everywhere, but also untouchable and intangible. And I feel like just back it across the Atlantic a bit more.
That's what is interesting about places that you can. I've never been to California actually, but I've been to England, and also yes, because I think we are all we have our I would say like imaginary, but it's from films, from readings, but also from somewhere else. And yeah, I thought it was something really good to let you really work together. And well, I don't know what to say more. It's you can't see me, but I'm smiling. And
Ça s'entend.
sometimes the voices are as important as the visuals. So in a way, it's quite good just also to hear the voices. Poetry is already really by our three-dimensional. I mean, it's you have the visual, the sound, that sense. I don't know comment on dit les sens,
The senses, the
voilà. It's yes, with the voice you can have things. But as Amanda said at the beginning, it's always strange to read my own poems in a way, because yes, there is this thing that you can have only when you read them from a book. I mean, although I'm sometimes doing performances, but it's different. It's when I'm doing integrate my singing, like I did to Centre Pompidou or Fondation Louis Vuitton and museums, and that's more like performance. But to read my poetry, I think sometimes it's just to read it in the book. Some poems and some others you can perform it. Yes. Thank
Cool.
you.
Anybody else have any questions or anything you want to say about this work? Just unmute and jump in.
I had a question for Laura, actually. Stephanie's not here anymore, right?
Right.
Okay, that's a shame, but maybe now she can tell us more. No.
Oh la la, Amanda.
I'm kidding. You mentioned that, but you meant my when I was reading, I was thinking about that kind of these enigmas, you know, and the difficulty also that you said about maybe not having perfect French and doing this translation, and how when you initially contacted her, you used the word betray instead of translate.
Trahison instead of
Trahison, yeah.
traduction, right? Yeah.
And those two are so intimately connected, this idea that a translation is always a betrayal, or right? So I was wondering, to what extent do you feel that you betrayed her work or had to betray it in some way?
Okay, well, the reason I mention it and care so much is because I am a fanatic about accuracy.
Okay.
So, in fact, aside from the fact that I opened the book today and found a typo, which is totally my fault, not Bill's, I'm a fanatic about translation, maybe not about copy editing. But I am ecstatic about this. And that's the joy. I could say that. I can definitely say the book is fantastic. Am I allowed to say that I'm ecstatic about the translation? Because it really captures the driving, intense rhythm of the thing, you know? And that's as important to me as the semantics are the sonics. To have gotten that down, to have gotten that propulsive force, makes me really happy.
Mm-hmm.
Nice question. And for you too, could we turn, Amanda, can I turn that question on the two of you or back to?
Yeah.
You.
I don't know. Do you have a response? Yeah. Do you have something
About
betrayal?
About betrayal, I have a lot on that subject. It's very, very I think I spoke about this a little bit in a sort of what do we call it? I don't know, like a seminar day that we actually hosted. Amanda hosted it with her university, and Sandra was there. I'm quite uncomfortable actually with translation. I think the betrayal is hard for me, and I think what you've said, Laura, is becoming something that I can sort of anchor myself in more as a practice. And I've been reading a lot about this from a few different sort of translator philosophy type people who would trace, you know, the rhythm back to being the heart of the text, and that being where you lodge it if you want to stay true to it. But then I also don't really love this idea of truth or like being true to the text. I don't really think poets care about that so much. So, I mean, or they care about it differently. And so translating poetry it's a really nice, I just don't ever really like the idea that we would call it finished, I guess. I kind of like the idea that translation would be a continued gesture, that it should be collective, that it should be, you know, like, I think maybe with like egos, it would be interesting if somebody came tomorrow and said like, Bill, can we give you a new translation of Cassandra at Point Blank Range and change the title?
Yeah.
But I also think that's a kind of cool thing to have in the world, that there would be another group of people or another person who felt like they wanted to give it a stab, and that the translation world should be really open to that a lot more than I find that it is personally. But yeah. But
Yeah, that's
go ahead,
a really
Amit.
good point. It's a good point, Carrie, and I think that translation will always, you know, translations will always be retranslated. Like nothing, like you say, nothing is ever finished, right? And that's what kind of testifies to the strength of a work also, is that someone later, you know, in 20 years or 50 years or 100 years might say, oh, this is worth redoing again, right? And it doesn't cancel what we've done. It's just a continuous process. And I think that like you said, that it should be collective, and I agree. And that was one of the reasons why we decided to do the co-translation also, to kind of give ourselves a little more of a buffer, or to be able to bounce off each other, and be a little more maybe sure of our choices because they've been collectively decided.
Mhm.
So yeah, a way of kind of avoiding misinterpretation, or I don't know if there is, yeah, is there any misinterpretation? I don't know, but doing justice, I guess, to the work in the best way possible.
I also wanted to add that Elena is here tonight, and she was one of my previous translators, and it was also wonderful working with Elena. She translated some of my work for 2 chapbooks and also an anthology in England from Emma Wapgap and Nina Parrish. Anyway, and so I'm really happy to see you, Elena, here also. And yes, I think that's the really important thing, is we all have a singular, different way of being with the text. And this is really a new creation, as I've said. And also this confidence between, non, comment on dit la confiance entre l'auteur, l'autrice et la traductrice. La confiance, trust, yes.
Trust.
Sorry. There is something about that betrayal you were talking, Carrie, which is something we have to let it go. We have to let the text go somewhere else, on another field, in another place. That's also, I think, yes, something like that, you know, lâcher prise, and something return then differently.
That's so wonderful, so beautifully said. And it reminds me that, in fact, Amanda and Carrie, didn't we have a little bit of a brush of this conversation at the New Orleans Poetry Festival, the most recent one in April, where we also discussed the fact that every reading of a book is a betrayal also, or a flowering and a betrayal, or you know, I mean, to read is to translate.
Yes, yes, yes,
Yes.
of course.
Yeah.
Yes. Hello, Ellen. I'm the
Bonjour.
only one who is totally. J'ai même plus parlé anglais. Comment on dit caché? Non, mais là, hidden. Non, mais là,
Hidden, yeah.
Yeah.
hidden by the translations,
Ah.
which is lovely.
Yeah, the original disappears into the translation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's
That,
totally
Robin
that.
Blazer
Yes.
line, I think. Yeah. Mhm.
That's the purpose,
Good
actually.
line.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting also to think about it in the other way around, in the sense that in reading Sandra, for example, we really felt that this book needed to exist in English because of all of the references to women poets and from the, in the Anglophone sphere, and references to the United States and the American culture and things like that. And yeah, it was kind of like this echo of English behind the original already. And I feel like that is the kind of, the call to be translated in a sense. I really felt that with this book. And I think that that is a way of reading, kind of when you are a person who reads and speaks multiple languages, you also kind of think in translation while you're reading things. In particular, if you sense that presence of another culture within the reading. It was like made perfect sense to us to do this project.
And it's funny because this book is also translated in Italian, actually. It's going to be published next year and or at the end of the year. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
That will be Cassandra in Bruxelles or something like that. Sorry, I was in that today. And also it's been translated by 3 translators. They've been working together. Valentina Gassetti, who is teacher at a university in Australia, and she's been also in Cambridge, and 2 other men translators. So it's interesting to see also this translations either with one person, and it's more frontal with me, like with Elena. We were exchanging quite deeply sometimes, and when there is 2 or 3 translators, they are more already forming like a little entity, I would say. It's a different approach, and that's quite interesting also to see how the language will, like a mirror, like mirrors, different mirrors.
Laura, did you have experiences like that, I guess, with your translation of Stéphanie Chaillou, that you, I don't know, I mean, of what I was hearing of the section you read, there's also this, I mean, I found actually more similarities without having read your translation or Stephanie's book yet. A lot of similarities with some of the background or like subtext that might have created some of these books with the French writers. But I was wondering, since there's so much mention of like the oral and origin with the oral, I don't know, what was your experience in thinking of voice and expression in a book that sounds like, at least from this sort of chapter, not having a language to the self that might be invaded by voice?
Yeah, what a complicated, interesting question, Carrie, and I'm not sure I can unpack it entirely. And I think I'll take a little digression actually and say something that people who know my work know. I was molested as a 9-year-old by a fencing teacher who was the first person to stick his tongue in my mouth. And so coming into this book with that awareness of the weirdness of that thrust was very, very, very triggering in the best way, in terms of, yeah, it helped to elucidate a feeling of strangeness in all further kisses, you know? And I love then that she switches over to the image of the tongues hung up on the laundry line, each one with a pin on it, waving in the air. Just so, so magic. But the book itself is very French, to a point where I had to, in fact, contact people to say, okay, what in the do you think this radish patch is really a radish patch, or is that, you know? It's French, and it's rural French, so that adds to the stretch on the book. But because Laugh of the Medusa, the Siksu text, is so crucial to me, the book was an arrow straight into the heart, because she is talking back to that in these as well. So she's talking back to a wave of feminism that I'm deeply familiar with.
Thank you. That's a beautiful response, Laura.
Carrie, I haven't heard what you said. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, I think I was thanking Laura for her response. Is that what you missed?
Yeah, because I couldn't hear it. Just
Oh, so sorry.
Me or the response from Laura?
no. Oh yes, I could hear Laura.
Oh.
Just
Okay.
Carrie.
Okay.
It was the sound was a bit weak. Just 1 second.
Okay.
But now it's.
I'm just going to say, Carrie, I love it when you talk about the truth issue, and I just wanted to say I have a sort of Greta Thunberg relationship to truth. It's really spectrumy and very much there is it, and we find it, and we communicate it. Yeah. And then we negotiate, because of course, whatever it is, it's going to be made up of all of our truths, plural, but it has to start with honesty, as honest as we can possibly be.
That's interesting for translation as well, to think of that, like what is the truth of this word? It might be the most exact direct translation we could find, where it might be the most poetic one, right? Depending on the mood of the line or the
Yeah.
words that it has in it and what it's speaking to us. So yeah, just kind of that ethics, right? The ethics of telling the truth, whatever that is. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
that, Laura,
Yeah.
thanks.
Nothing simple about it. Thanks, Amanda. That's great. Wow. Yeah. I'm so pleased we were able to do this.
Yeah, this has been great. Guess the hour and a bit is pretty well up. Does anybody else have anything to add? Any of you've been silent out there? Feel free to join in. Otherwise, I'm gonna plug the two books one more time. I repasted some information in the chat that links you to the books and the author and translator bios on the Lavender Ink Diálogos website. And there's like it says, use coupon code France, and you get a good discount if you want to buy both of these books. And or
I had a little thing I wanted to well, I was really interested in this first sequence of this is Ben speaking
Ben.
from Laura's translation, but like I was kind of struck by the fact that you mentioned that you don't know the language, or at least in a speaking way, which in one sense is like a basic I mean, it's fundamental to like understanding a language if you're talking about like in the way that you might say like truth is something that is there that you seek out and sort of you come to a parameter with someone what it means that you're saying. So but I was struck by like just the tonal like it seemed to recreate the rhythm, not just like the rhythm, but sort of some of the tonal intensity of the French. Now, of course, I'm saying this as someone who doesn't know French. So that also means, I mean, that's also kind of, it's hard to say exactly what sound is in a poem, but I was really struck by the fact that like it had this really strong mimetic sense of the original, and just part of me was wondering if that was something that it could be tied to like this not knowing of the language, that you'd seek that out, and the power of it, just in this, you know, because I feel
Yeah, yeah, Ben,
like
let me,
meaning can be
yeah.
like more or less clear, because even if it's something you work out with someone else, but sound is something that is so relative to like to match up like what is noise or not, and what is consistent to my hearing or to someone else's that may or may not know the language I speak, is something that is kind of unceasingly, well, I think I've talked enough, but I was
So,
really struck by
let
the
me,
mimetic
yeah,
quality.
let me jump in and say a couple of
Sure.
things. One, because we're recording this, especially, I'd hate to be down in a recording saying I didn't know the language. I read French. I read French really. I was well trained in reading French. And I will also say that the hilarious thing that struck me about this is I realized, you know what, Laura? In fact, you have some of the same feelings about English, meaning I feel great writing it. I feel totally happy reading it. And when I'm talking, I feel a little funky, like shit might go wrong.
It's the opposite for me.
Yeah, yeah, right. So it's really a matter of that. I read it when you write, you can be alone. You can go at your own speed. You can involve dictionaries. You can check with friends. And when you speak, as we're speaking right now, it's this amazing jazz improv. And either you hit the note or you don't hit the note. And the session is over. So I will go down as feeling a lot more confident on the page than on the stage. And certainly my part of my dubiousness about my being in the world influences my actions in every sphere.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, thanks again to everyone for coming. Thanks to Carrie, Amanda, Laura, and Sandra, and Stephanie. Sorry, Stephanie had to leave early, and Sandra gets her picture blocked for some reason. I don't know if it's some kind of plot or
Never mind.
censorship. Could be almost anything these days.
It's been great. I could hide myself, and it's good. I could express myself better in a way.
Yeah, that's like kind of like what Laura was talking about. Yeah,
You can see my picture on the book. Long time ago.
Yeah.
You wrote the freaking poems, yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So, okay.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you,
All
Laura.
right.
Thank you,
Thank you
Amanda.
all for
so
coming.
much.
Thank
Bill.
you, thank
And thank you to
you.
Stephanie.
Thank
And thank you,
Thanks,
everyone,
y'all.
people I can
Mwah.
And next time I will
Done.
friends
know
I
how
see.
to. Thank you to everybody.
Bye.
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 Thank you.
Bye.